Cool, thanks Natasha. So hi everyone, brilliant introduction. No more needs to really be said on that. What we try to do in these events is to bring on, Chapter 2 tries to bring on talent professionals with oodles of experience in HR, talent development and talent acquisition, with the aim to share some stories, some challenges, some examples where things have gone really well, some examples where things have gone really, really badly. So we can all learn from this. And my ambition for this sort of channel, if you like, in this content is that we can share out, half an hour to an hour's worth of really great content, dipping into the people that we are privileged to have with us today. So I just want to personally thank Sarah and Clive for coming. We really, really appreciate it, because without these panel discussions and you guys, we wouldn't be doing this. So thank you. I thought we'd kick off by talking about like the talent acquisition process, all the way from engagement of candidates all the way through to offer and acquiring those candidates. We all know, I think, and everybody on this webinar today will know that the talent challenge has become even more so challenging because of the number of vacancies and the competition for talent across all industries. So what I want to do is effectively dip into each part of the talent process and lean into the experiences of Clive and Sarah to understand how it works in your businesses, so that people on the webinar can also listen to that. And I'll share some of the stories from our clients and how we do it as well. Before we get kicked off, Clive and Sarah, what would be really, really great is if you could talk us through a little bit about what your talent structure looks like at each of your businesses, because they differ depending on budgets, depending on the size of company, depending on the locations of the business. What does, Clive, maybe if I start with you, what does the talent structure of Sky Betting look like as a hierarchy, and how they face off towards hiring managers?
Yeah. So obviously there's myself as head of talent acquisition at SBG, and then I've got a team of 6 at the moment, and we're looking to expand. And then the talent acquisition partners are split into 3 areas. So technology is one of our main areas, where we have 3 talent acquisition partners that are including a lead. Then we've got a couple that are based that look after product and commercial hiring and corporate functions. And then we've got someone that looks after all our volume hiring as well. In the past, we've had a resourcing model. It didn't actually work at the time. I think we set up the model incorrectly, where if you've ever worked in an agency, often your resources get a bonus for finding someone for an interview or an offer. We paid quite a competitive salary, and there wasn't that incentive sometimes for people to find those candidates. And I think if we'd have done it like an agency model, we'd have probably had a better success. Ultimately, the talent acquisition partner, they were the people with their neck on the line. Don't get me wrong, the resources did a great go at it, but for some reason we just didn't nail it. But I think the thing with us is try something. If it doesn't work, learn from it and see how we can adapt and change it for the future.
And when did you so previously it was a resourcing and talent model whereby people would face off to the hiring manager, and you had like this CV engine that would just churn through. Was that based at your office, and were these the guys plugged into LinkedIn, would take all the briefs?
And they'd be the ones then giving us the CVs, the talent acquisition partners, to then present to the hiring managers. We probably didn't get the resources involved enough with actually going to those kick-off meetings. So that's probably why it failed a little bit at the time. And I think at the time we launched it at the wrong time in the market. I think the model would work now, and I've seen other people that did it successfully. Just for us, I think we were a little bit too soon to do it.
Yeah, sure. And today, so today it's sort of evolved from some sort of front of house and the sort of resourcing engine to a sort of where your talent partners would take the briefs and then they'd engage and search. And what it generally might be known as maybe a 180, is it? So they do like the client engagement and then they do the searching as well?
Yes, they would, yeah. So they've got their own talent pools of warm candidates that they've got established from our CRM. And then often it's pure headhunting, unfortunately, because even though our brand is quite powerful, we've got skill sets that these people are in such demand, they don't have to apply for a job. So how are we going to get this software engineer engaged with our brand?
Yeah, because I mean, obviously an online business, right? So your world is hugely technology driven. How are you finding the sort of competitive world of talent, and any particular roles that you're finding difficult and solutions to that you've had in the past?
I would always say technology has always been the hard one. It's always been very competitive, but we're finding it in the product and commercial space. Even those roles now are becoming a challenge because everyone's starting to hire again. One tactic that we did have just before COVID to help us with software engineering recruitment was actually, we brought software engineers in for the day, and we actually paid them for their time. Every time we run a session, and we actually called it time back as cash, we made a hire. How many times do you actually interview someone and get a hire at the end of the day? Not always. So that was really good, and unfortunately COVID sort of killed that, and we're hoping to bring it back now with the offices opening back up.
Right, so you paid them for the time that they gave to you through the interview process, so they thought that it was a good transaction for them, so they were getting paid for their time anyway. Yep. But you gave them the opportunity to really shine and show that I want to work, and almost gave you a try before you buy with each other, I guess.
Yeah, it was bring the real self to work for the day. And they'd start in the morning with a stand-up, then they'd work through some tickets, go for lunch with people in the squad, come back, do some more work on the tickets, have an office tour, then we'd debate which people we wanted to hire. We paid them £500 per day. I wanted to go more. I wanted to go 1,000, but I got talked out of it. We set the £500 because we thought it was quite a good amount, because if you were working to give up your time, if you're a contractor to give up your time as well, and also £500 when you think of it, when it's maybe £9,000 for an agency hire, it's pretty cheap. But on the flip side, you could have it where someone actually came in, we didn't like them, they didn't like us, and actually £500 is quite a good cost saver when you think of the cost to actually exit someone from a business. We were a little bit worried to start with because people were like, no, you're just going to get contractors that come for the day just to get the £500. We never ever met that person. Everybody that engaged with us really wanted the job, which was really good. We also put some swag behind it as well. So you even had a lanyard that said staff, not just yet winky face. They got a mug as well. And then obviously with that mug, even if you didn't get the job, you've got that coffee cup at home to remember the day with us as well.
That's brilliant.
Love that.
Yeah, I won't tell you how many people applied to the advert, but it was a lot.
Right out of the gates, like first 5 minutes, there's a strategy right there that worked brilliantly. Thank you.
That's like a real life assessment centre. I love that.
Yeah, we also did it because some candidates are neurodivergent as well. So for those people, you put them in an interview room and they can't really demonstrate their real skills. We want to see how these people code. We don't want them to be distracted by the air conditioning or the people walking by the interview room. They're probably never ever going to go in that interview ever again in their lives. And it used to be a big frustration of mine, because I used to recruit software engineers, is you do always work to find them, and then we put them in an environment that we're setting them up to fail. And I'd be like, oh great, I've now got to spend another 2 solid months trying to find 2 more people, and we might or might not get a hire at the end. Whilst with this other solution, it was like we always made a hire, which was really great. It was a little bit back to my older days in recruitment, when you just put an advert on Read when it used to be a free board, and literally you'd time it, and within 10 minutes you'd have like 4 or 5 people applied. And like, great, I can make some calls now.
This is a classic example of how you can reallocate your budgets. £1,000 sounds like a lot of money. £500 for a day sounds about right. I think, but if you could now compare that with, well, maybe your business case could have been or would have been, well, we spent X with this RPO, and that's our fees. You reallocate 30% of that budget to this strategy, and we'll hire the same amount of people that the RPO probably does, and we'll have all these inbound people that come in and apply. That's making that, we call that sweating the budget that bit further.
Yeah, I've heard of some companies paying for people to do a tech test. Paying them like £20 or 20 euros. You think about someone's going to give up their weekend to do the tech test, and then quite often some companies don't even give them the feedback of where they've gone wrong.
Well, this is the whole swing, right? And I know we're jumping around here, but this is how the conversation should flow, right? So like, I've worked in a number of in whereby like someone's, I'll remain nameless, but they said, well, they should do the test over the weekend because they really want the job. I was like, no, this is a candidate-driven market. You want them, right? Yeah. You have to start selling to them. These guys are going to go somewhere else, and you're going to need to fill these seats, right? So absolutely, you should be paying for them to do the test or paying them for their time, because well, like they got 3 other offers probably pending and at second interview stage.
Yeah, I think the key with software engineers or anything that involves some type of technical test is you've got to change and adapt your process based on the candidate and what other opportunities they've got, not have it so fixed and set in stone, because they decide what they want to do. And once you can change that, you're onto a winner. We used to have it originally when I first started, where it was literally, you had a call at 7 o'clock, the phone with an engineering manager at 7:10, they finished the call, you had 2 hours to send the tech test back. If it wasn't back by 9:10, it was a straight fail. And we found out that nobody ever passed. So we had to change it and realize people have a life, you know. So as much as we sometimes say you've got a weekend or 48 hours or a week to send it back, that's really just for us to be like getting in touch with them to chase. So are you going to do it? You know, are you having some problems, and extend it? Or if we think they're not going to do it, it's like, look, why don't you just have a coffee chat first with somebody? You know, shall we interview first? And if we need to do the tech test at the end, or if there's someone that's so adamant they're not going to do a tech test, it's like, what else can you provide us with to show us how good you are? But then it's having that confidence to have a conversation with the manager to say, look, they're not going to do the tech test. Simple as, they don't need to. You know, I've had it up against some companies where they've just offered purely off looking at GitHub.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and these, I think these, there are so many portals that people can use, and we're going to come on a bit later in this session about, you know, what other tech platforms, data channels people have access to and what you guys have used. I'm curious to take a step back slightly on the same subject matter before we come to you, Sarah, on your structure. But because I just wanted, while we're on the point, this is obviously, you took the strategy. I'm curious to ask, you came up with the idea to do it, right? How did the conversation go with, you know, your budget holder to convince them to do this? And most importantly, how did you promote this out to the world so people would then come in? How did you take that out to the candidate world?
Came up with the idea from another number of sources, and also had a product where we paid customers some money back if their horse lost, but that's how I marketed it at the end. It was from a couple of talks that I'd gone to and everyone else was struggling, and I was thinking back to my days where you'd put the advert out on Read and they'd be like, how can I get my adverts in front of software engineers? And actually I've got hundreds of people have applied. I just wanted that power again, rather than having to spend days upon days just searching into this void. Then when I fleshed out the idea, I got a couple of internal stakeholders within technology to get bought into the idea. We're quite fortunate at Skybet. They always love somebody who likes ideas and innovation. One of our values is create the next. So they were sort of expecting me to come with something like this, you know. If I think back to my journey at Skybet, the amount of things that I've come up with and got across the line, whether they be in talent acquisition or not, it's that type of business where if you've got a great idea, they will let you run with it, rather than it's write your idea on a postcard, go away. So once I sort of got it over the line, I then got a couple of squads interested to actually go out and do it. But then someone sent me a bit of an ultimatum, was like, you've got one go at this, Clive. If it fails, I will not let you ever do it. And I was like, I can't do this. It's too much to gamble. You know, you're basically saying I'm allowed one candidate only, and all this hard work, then it exists. So then I managed to get another squad interested, and I was like, we'll hire somewhere else and then we'll go back to this one stakeholder and give me one go. Then when it came to the marketing, at the time we worked with Chatter, and they helped us with the external messaging, and then we built a campaign to go live with it. And then it was just sort of word of mouth. We also engaged some of our software engineers internally for feedback of what they thought as well, because they had a key part, you know, whether they were going to participate in this as well, because they were going to have to spend time with this person. The other worry was a lot of people saying, oh, we can't give up a full day for one candidate. And we were like going, but if you add in all those steps, a phone call, a tech test, a second review, an interview, it probably is about the same amount of time. But if we do it where we split it with different people throughout the day, it's probably less time. Then it was just a question of going live with it. And then actually each time we run a session, actually learning from it, what could we do to tweak it and make it better? So there's still stuff when we bring it back that we still want to do that we never got around to actually finally implementing. And then, shall we say, COVID came and sort of ruined it for us.
Would you do it again?
Definitely. I wanted to move it out to non-tech roles, and the business wanted us to do that. So could we do something towards like product or even a commercial role? I don't think it just has to be software engineering. I think we need to try and change our ways of thinking. It's like, is an interview the best way to assess somebody? You know, can we have more work-related tasks? And this is one thing I'm trying to push my team on. It is, we struggle in some areas because we've sort of seen every candidate there is in the market, but can we sort of recycle candidates where they don't see that CV, does the manager, but we do some type of blind task, and then that gets you that foot in the door, if that makes sense. I know when I hire in my team, very rarely do we look at a CV. We do other tasks that relate to the job, because we all know you can have a great CV but not be a great candidate.
Yeah, that's true. And then
Pete, sorry, Leah, we've had Pete come on and say NHS trusts quite often do that, but up to 2,000 to tempt applicants over the border from another county as well. So yeah, obviously does work across different roles as well.
Interesting. Thanks, Pete. Cool. So Sarah, we've talked a lot about how talent acquisition is a sales and marketing role, and obviously one of the things that Clive was just talking about there is that whether it's money or something, there's got to be almost like a reason for someone to participate in an application or an event. I generally always, because I'm obviously from the marketing world, I generally believe that in dealing with human beings, you've got to give them a reason to want to buy something. In this case, it's buy into a job role, which is, as I've always talked about, a lifetime purchase. You are like head of HR across everything on Securitas. Talent is one part of everything you do. It's high volume. We've purposefully casted this panel because maybe Clive's a bit more tech orientated. You're quite volume orientated. I'd love to hear about what your structure looks like and maybe some of the challenges that you've come across and what it looks like, how it looks to you, the talent world.
Yeah, okay. So we've only had internal recruiters since November. Prior to that, our managers were doing their own recruitment, which was interesting. So we've now got a team of 6 internal recruiters, but our business is 10,000 people. So that's high volume recruitment, and it's mainly for the same roles over and over again. So yeah, we have 6 recruiters, and then we have 3 administrators. And just what Clive was saying as well is that agility to make a change. If something's not working, then change it. And we absolutely do that. So in August, we changed that structure already. So the recruiters were recruited in November. And what we found was that the recruitment was going well, that the recruiters were using marketing and sales principles to get people over the line. And then the onboarding was falling down with our background screening department, and we were losing candidates at that stage. So what we did in August was combine those 2 teams. So now each recruiter has an onboarder and an admin. So that's just to get that ownership. And the way that our recruiters work is they're aligned to a business area, a geographic business unit. So they business partner, essentially. They know what's important, what's not important, not as important, what things to prioritize, and they work really closely with the area as well as with their team for professional expertise.
That's really interesting because, again, going through like the sort of candidate journey, if you like, it's one thing to get inbound, right? That's not the job done. That's difficult, but that's part of the job done. Then you've got engagement, and then once you get to the point where you want to make an offer and background check on board someone, I love the way you've actually created these squads, because actually this is where the baton gets passed to somebody. In some cases, the recruiter will then turn, get on with the next role, and then forget about that one. And then suddenly that person might be disengaged because they're buying into that individual, because that person sold me the job, right? So I'm buying into that individual. If the baton's passed on too quickly, the candidate can then lose interest. If it's gone into a department that might be under different levels of stress, may not have got to them, all of a sudden, all this hard work at the front end can literally just fall by the wayside if we don't follow through, if you like. Yeah. So your strategy, go on.
Yeah, no, it can really feel like a numbers game for the background screeners. They're just churning through on a production line, and there's not that that level of investment that's done that hard work to get the best person for that role. And so it's really important that relationship is maintained throughout the onboarding
and it's done in, like,
process.
if you like, I'm going to call them like squads, right? So that squad is responsible for, you know, engagement all the way through to the end. So they're a team that are fully I don't know, committed to making sure that people that come in that they want are all come all the way through the process, have a really great experience, because as we know, the experience is, you know, massively important. And go on.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about what Clive was saying as well, and when we were talking about people doing things over the weekend, I think you don't want your candidates to resent you before they've even got a job. You want them to leave, even if they didn't get it, you want them to leave just really wishing they had, and then telling the positive messages to everyone that they speak to about this experience and how great it was. And if you're making people give up their weekends to do things for you, they're not going to have a good feeling about you, whether they get the job or not.
Exactly. Again, going back to that point, it's like a lifetime purchase, right? If someone feels good about buying into something, they're gonna enjoy the process. They're gonna know this is the right place for them. If they're already through the early stage of engagement, starting to feel a little bit, I don't know, undervalued because they've been asked to, you know, do something on the weekend or work late, and there's not too much care given over them, they're going to they're not going to join, because frankly speaking, there are too many other opportunities out there in the world for people now.
I think on that though, you've also got to be careful about when you contact candidates as well, because everyone's trying to promote a work-life balance these days. But it's like, you know, there's got to become a point where it's like, I shouldn't really be getting in touch with you. If you get in touch with me, I can reply to you. But I've had people contact me at like early hours of the morning with opportunities. I'm like going, and you can make excuses if they're in different time zones, but I'm like, you're based in the UK, so why are you still sending me this at this time? You know, and I think sometimes some candidates do read into that, like going, yeah, you portray yourself as a great place to work, but why are you messaging me at 10 o'clock at night?
Yeah. How does it look from a IT structure point of view for your talent teams? We talked, I mean, you both run different talent departments, but actually structurally you're not too dissimilar. And I'm interested to understand and maybe share with the people on this webinar the tech stack that you guys might lean into to create the blueprint or the rails on which the talent acquisition process will run through. Because, you know, someone with no budget might be working on Excel, and someone with oodles of budget might be working on the biggest ATS platform there is. I'd love to know, businesses like yours, how it all runs from a technology point of view. Either one wants to start, I don't mind.
Okay, well, I don't mind going first. So interestingly, when I joined Securitas 6 years ago, there was no ATS. So at the time we had 12,000 employees. So we've strategically reduced because we're moving to more technology solutions for our customers, so less people, more tech. So a massive headcount, massive labour turnover at 35% at that point, and recruitment was just done on paper. I don't know how our managers were finding people, but I guess the market was such that you were able to just find people. And they'd fill it. I remember when I joined and I had to write my national insurance number on a form, 7 different forms. And I just knew I had to change it straight away. So if we fast forward to 6 years later, we have an applicant tracking system that also manages our advertising. So our vacancies are posted on our adverts are written in a system. They're published to our website and to whatever advertising package we choose. And our advertising packages are 3 different price brackets, the lowest going to Reed, Indeed and Monster and so on. So that gets pushed out automatically. Everything is just automated. There's no kind of paper involved anywhere in our process. The candidates apply by uploading a CV directly to the system. And then the interviews are arranged through the system, directly through Teams and Outlook. So again, we don't have to do anything manual. And the candidates can book their own slots in a calendar that we provide to them, so we don't have to mess about working out who's doing what time. And then that then links straight through to our onboarding system. So it's seamless. And then, so when we make an offer, the candidate gets an invite to complete all of their background screening information, and then we can complete their screening. So a world apart from where we were 6 years ago.
It sounds like it. So here's what I want to drill a bit deeper into. Like, I want to understand, because obviously you saw it, right? Go from paper to this super slick system. First question I think everyone wants to ask is, what is the system that you guys use? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so we use Smart Recruit Online, which is actually, it's a really good system, but it's a small company. So if we're not happy with something, then or if something doesn't work for us, then we can talk to them, and they'll usually just make a change if it would benefit all their customers. If it's something bespoke for us, then we just have to pay some development. But it's you know, the benefits of using a smaller company rather than a big giant. So yeah, Smart Recruit Online is who we use.
I think it's really important actually to remember, because we have to be quite adaptable to the process, and there might be some very easy quick fixes that you want to make. And while I think there are some amazing ATS platforms out there, we've bought a number of them, and what we do is we chat to, when we build our in-house talent teams, we sometimes recommend, but also we inherit our clients within existing agreements. And sometimes you want to just say, can you make some recommendations? Because we're the customers to these tech platforms that are using this on a daily basis. And you feed this giant firms and it's like, yeah, we'll get to it. And they've got this dev list that looks like that. And if you could have sounds like you've got a great partner there that would actually be quite nimble to your feedback, because they probably recognize that your feedback is reflective of what other clients will want too. So they build it into their proposition, their tech stack. Can we talk a little bit about how you went from paper through to this super slick online system and the process you went through?
Yeah, so we got a few different suppliers in and looked at what their offering was, and went through a procurement process and chose the system. I guess the most difficult part was to get our managers to use the new system, because as I mentioned before, they were doing everything on paper and not advertising necessarily. And one of our big objectives is to have a more diverse and inclusive workforce, and that kind of way of working doesn't really encourage that. So we had to mandate it. We had to make it so that if they didn't do that, then they wouldn't get the person out the other end, because they wouldn't be able to get them through the process if they hadn't advertised it correctly. And now I'm really happy to be able to say that we advertise every single vacancy externally and internally, because that's something else that Smart Recruit could do. They host our careers page on our website, the vacancy listing page, but they also host it on an internal platform as well. So our internal candidates follow the same process as our externals, but they're easily distinguishable for us, so we can see who's where. So yeah, we had to communicate, involve operations and the actual people that will be using the system in any change. I guess that's the key thing, is to involve people, and then they're not being done to, they're involved in that journey, and just over communicate, but then also put some mandate in there so that it's not optional. This is how it has to be, so that we achieve on our objective to create a more diverse and inclusive workforce. That's
thank you for that. And again, going back to one of your points, and Clive, I'll come to you on your tech stack in a second. I think one of the things that I've always talked about is the talent acquisition team has got a finite level of capacity in it, and what you really want them doing is seeking and sourcing and engaging talent. And when you implement these applicant tracking systems, you've got to go on a journey from the way someone's been very used to working to a new way, which should be for the greater good and better for them and lower administration. What you probably received, and what you alluded to earlier, which was that resistance, which was, I don't want to log in, I don't want to put my job description on there, I don't want to fill out the form, when they were probably doing it in hard copy anyway. And then what that then did, that workload trickles down back onto the talent partners, which then hinders their capacity to be able to actually do what they're there to do. And it's a real sort of challenge to make sure that the partnership between the hiring manager and the talent partner is one whereby they know their roles and responsibilities, right? So it's like a blender. Good goes in, good comes out the other end, and their end of the deal is to make sure that everything gets put into these applicant tracking systems, so that what our guys, your guys, the teams can do is spend their time finding the best candidates.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Clive, I'm curious to hear from you on a sort of a tech business, how you guys handle your tech stack for your talent acquisition.
So our main tech stack is obviously the ATS. We'll start with that. So we use Workday, which is one of those, it's good and bad, but it's only one of those where I say to anyone who uses any ATS, it's only as good as what you put into it. I think we learned the hard way because we took a lot of things offline, and then obviously GDPR came along. When I first started recruiting here, we used to use Trello. It was brilliant, but then it's not obviously GDPR compliant. And then you realise later on, we've got all these secret boards with candidates on. We then want to have a CRM, but they're not in the CRM. So then it's like, it doesn't make you hire faster. We were in the mindset it did, so we had to move away from doing that, and we don't do those type of things anymore. The good thing with Workday is it's that complete journey for someone that actually joins our company. So it's the HR system as well. So once you do onboard through Workday, then when it comes to your day-to-day life at SBG, you're using Workday for your expenses, your pay slips, purchasing, etc. And then also, if you then become a hiring manager, you're then using it to use it for recruitment. LinkedIn, one of our biggest tools. Everyone has their own LinkedIn recruiter license. It was something that I was really keen to get for the team. I've worked in other companies where not everyone has a recruiter seat. You're having to share the seat, and then you get told off by LinkedIn. I think it's one of those, I think today it's like it justifies the outlay because you only need to make a couple of hires and you sort of pay for it yourself. We've been quite fortunate over the years. We've tried a lot of products, but what we tend to do is look now at the return of investment, also the usage and the hires, and then also break it down. The cost per hire is great if you've made a hire from it, but if I've just paid 25,000 and I've just hired one CX advisor, it's the cheaper ways of doing it. So we have learned the hard way. We've bought the wrong things, but you've sometimes got to trial things as well. X-ray searching, I'm a real big fan of that as well. It's trying to look at different places, just because we've covered the normal places, LinkedIn, we're starting to deal with a lot of candidates now that are actually taking their profiles offline because they hate recruiters that much. So it's how can I find these people?
You say X-ray searching, is that a tech product?
Yeah, it's just like Google. It's like Google searching, but then there's different techniques of, I'm a big fan of Twitter as well. The amount of candidates you can find through Twitter is amazing, but often it's, have we done that? Who's attending these conferences? Can I backwards search these people? We did actually want to make a hire that we found from an Amazon book review. It's always possible to make a hire, but it's just, you can never ever go back to our manager and say it's a difficult role to fill. With the people who've got to come up with those solutions. I think also it's like being open-minded about using agencies as well. There's a place for agencies, but I think in this marketplace is where on that job list is your role going to be, and also what's your relationship like with those agencies. There's no point having a frosted relationship. I think you've got to be quite open, fair, and transparent, because ultimately you put the phone down or they leave the briefing meeting, are they actually going to go back and do some work on that role? We've done it where we could have taken candidates off agencies where if we'd have waited another week, the ownership would have passed to us. And I'm like, but that's probably a little bit unfair when it's probably our fault that we've sat on the candidate. And I've gone back to the agent and said, look, is so-and-so available? Because I've managed to get the manager to re-review all these old CVs. And it looks like you've got ownership till next week. So I don't want to be a little bit underhanded, take them off you. And then we've ended up making hires that way, and they appreciate that, rather than going, they find out and LinkedIn's been updated and like going, oh, then you're getting into a can of worms, you get legal involved, and it just wastes my time.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the agency thing and also Twitter, right? Because actually, you are the first person that's come on one of these and said they found people through Twitter. So I want to understand how that works. But actually, let's go there first. How did the Twitter thing work? Because I've talked about content creation. I talk a lot about dramatizing the proposition, dramatizing stories within the business, creating that window that people can see into. How did you use Twitter then to find talent?
I do it sometimes by looking at people I follow. If I know there's an event going on, who can I then look at the contacts, who's putting out content, who's using those hashtags as well. And then sometimes there's some scraping tools that you can use that then will search onto Twitter as well. But sometimes I just go into my own account and then just start thinking about what would they be posting on. I think events is quite a good one. So if there's a local event or even a national conference, it's like there's going to be people that post on the day. So then it's like, who can I see that's in that feed? And then who can I then find? I might not find them on Twitter, but it's like, where do they exist elsewhere? I have done it in the past where all the interactions been through Twitter. And when it even came to interview comms, I was like, well, I could move this to Outlook, but shall we just try and do it all on Twitter? And I did, which was good because you can prove it does work. And I think that, for some people, it's just finding the right platform that they're going to be on. As much as like LinkedIn is great, I think it's like you've got to cover other bases. And I think especially more so in technology, when I've chatted to some of the engineers that work here and elsewhere, it's like, they really do not like recruiters. They take off a lot of information. So it's like, let's find out what they're chatting about elsewhere.
Yeah. And that's where you talked about, GitHub and Slack channels and that sort of stuff. There are these other places where these guys hang out. And they also, frankly, want to either talk to the business that they're going to hire with or their own peers and take recommendations. That's probably why they, circulate in those other areas.
Yeah. Or sometimes it might be you find that person because you know that they went to that Kotlin conference, but then it's like, I now know that they work at this company. Who else works at this company that I can see on LinkedIn that hasn't listed Kotlin as a key skill? But I didn't know that company used Kotlin. So then I know, oh, right, okay, they call everyone an engineer there. Chances are they're probably going to be using Kotlin. I'll now start reaching out to these people rather than I run a search with Kotlin in. There's nobody, so it's sometimes you've got to try and think a little bit outside the box to, expand that list.
One of the things I sort of quite try to pride ourselves on at Chapter 2 is when we go in and we design our talent teams for our clients, sometimes we are all encompassing. We sort of, they outsource a talent function to us. Sometimes in scale ups and startups, we go in and we design and build a talent solution. So as an example, Opoly, one of our clients, they don't have a talent solution. We're designing and building and managing that whole process for them, our people, our process technology. But actually some of our other clients, they have their own infrastructure internally, but they need scale and capacity. So instead of using a recruitment agent, actually, what we do is we drop in a team of anywhere between 3, 5, 1 person to help with that capacity with the team, scale it up for a period of time, and then it scales back down. And I think technology plays a massive part in delivering that because anyone can go and get a recruiter and drop them in, but actually we don't just put a bum on a seat. That person and that team come with all the tech stack that Chapter 2 has that we invest in. So, as an example, the teams that we have around the world have got access to Horsefly as an example. I've used Talent Insights. We've still got access to Talent Insights, but I've just invested in Horsefly because actually I think it's probably one of the best data sets for me where I can get salary benchmarking and understand where the population sit of different skill sets. So I'm now having a very senior level conversation with CTOs and I'm saying, this is where your population sits. And you can sort of hammer home to us, you want this role, you want this role. Let's say, I'll take an example, I'll take a real life example, right? A .NET developer. This client wanted a .NET developer in central London. And we were asked, why are we not finding this talent quick enough within the budgets? So straight into Horsefly and Talent Insights, we did our data analysis. And I just presented, here's your population, UK, nearly 4,000 people. Okay, you want this person to be based in London. Right, straight away, that brings it down to 1,400. Oh, by the way, there are 1,500 other job adverts for that one job. Now, if you opened your search, and the world in COVID has taught us that we can be remote, and actually a lot of developers we've spoken to actually quite like the working from home structure, you can create a sort of wider talent population pool where you can get access to great talent. So what we then did, we mapped out their office locations and the heat mapped that versus where the talent was. And all of a sudden they were like looking in different places because frankly, they were just using the same tool saying, I need these people in London. You don't, and actually, do you know what? The population isn't there for the salary you're paying. So that's a classic example where we used Horsefly and talent insights to present back to our client to solve the problem, because it's a solution-driven action we're trying to create here. It's not just it's not pick up the phone and dial anymore. We've got to be a bit more strategic about how we find these people because it's so candidate-driven. Other technology.
Nationwide used Horsefly to reallocate their tech hub, didn't they? Because I think they were originally going to go with Swindon and then realised there's probably not enough people in Swindon or in travelling distance. So yeah, they use it brilliantly.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it was brilliant actually. And what other things? Sourcebreaker for Boolean search. Again, not all recruiters are going to know the different job titles that sits behind a .NET developer or a solution architect or a Java developer. And Sourcebreaker can just literally sort of do the Boolean string for you, which I found has been brilliant. And one of our team, one of our guys, we call ourselves the Wolf Pack. We're chatting to Wolf Pack. You might see some of our emojis. Pete Cook came up with this with the team with the Vision and Values Day, and he's been coming up with loads of ideas and all these different job boards. And we, for tech, we find CW jobs to be really good as well. So just for anybody in the audience, this is some of the things we lean into. Sarah, from your point of view, any other sort of outside your ATS, anything else that you lean into at all?
Yeah, I mean, previously, I guess before 5-6 weeks ago, you could just put an ad out and get applicants, and so it's been a bit of a shock to the system that they're just not there at the moment. So we've been actually working quite closely with job centres, and I know that a lot of people have a reluctance, but if you get a good consultant in a job centre, they will find you candidates. And there are people that are looking for jobs that wouldn't think of our industry, and we're fortunate enough that so you need a license to work in our industry, but we're fortunate that we actually pay for our employees' licenses for them, and we put them through the training to obtain that license. We have our own in-house trainers, so we're able to so we're looking at diversifying people's talents and trying to get them to understand that if you're great at customer service, or you've worked in hospitality or retail, then you'd be really good at this, because security isn't what you would imagine it to be anymore. It isn't that anymore. It's more customer service and keeping people safe and being alert. So the job centres have been really useful. We're also working with the government fund agencies up and down the country to work with people that are looking for work. So we're able to plug those directly into our ATS as well, so that our vacancies will go to them automatically as well. And there's some social enterprises as well, like Beam's one of them, that helps vulnerable people that have found themselves homeless. They help them to find somewhere to live and kind of get themselves back and help them find a job and help give them the skills to find a job. So we're using lots of different agencies like that, but we will also use a recruitment agency. But again, as Clive said, it's using it where you need to, rather than just blanket using recruitment agencies. So we need to do some DV, which is a really enhanced level of screening clearance to do government work, and that's what we would use an agency for those kind of hires, because they're a lot more difficult to find, and they're more about network than finding them. So we're trying lots of different things at the moment, but it's not as simple as just pushing out an ad with a bullet point of tasks that you want someone to come and do. It's creating a marketing piece to really pull people in, and building the organisation at the back end that they will like when they get here as well.
Yeah, I being an ex sort of marketing advertising guy, I could talk for hours about how marketing and content can drive inbound activity, and that's what we're all about. I think if you take one standard recruitment fee and you put that towards creating a film and put that film in the right places, you could drive 5-6 hires over hiring one person through a fee. don't get me wrong, recruitment teams and recruitment businesses have their place. We use them, right? When we struggle with certain very niche roles, we have a tier 1, tier 2 supply chain, then we lean into these guys because at the end of the day, we need to service our clients. So there's absolutely a place for them. But I think there's a number of other avenues available to everybody now because everybody, I keep saying this, but everybody is on these, right? Mm-hmm. And how you get to people these days, whether you're selling a product where you want to communicate something, where you want to apply for anything, this is how you get to people. And by serving out content to potential audiences will give them sort of a bit of an opportunity to look into your world, look into your business and go, can I see myself working here? I think there are two sort of engines that play in this world. Well, for chapter 2 specifically, there's the content creation engine that serves out content for our clients, brand and businesses to show the world what it's like to work. And that very much tells the candidate, am I compatible with this business? Can I see my future friends and colleagues working here? Because by not using stock imagery, right, by using real people telling real stories, you can actually get a flavor of what it's really like to work at that business, and candidates will be inspired. And the whole idea about content creation is to inspire someone to do something, whether it be buy something or apply for something. And if you can serve up stories, which frankly don't cost much because you just got to get your people to tell their stories about stuff and serve it out in the right place, you can create a massive inbound application. So
it's one of those things that's hard though to get people to become brand advocates though. You either want to do it or you don't. And I think it's one of those things that people struggle with because they think they're going to get judged if it's not that great, their content. But I think it's one of those, you've just got to start somewhere and don't be afraid to fail. We've done some work with our leadership team to get them to actually be, content creators now, which is actually starting to make a difference. Our CEO is really active on LinkedIn. But previously when we'd asked the former CEOs, they were like, no, I'm not doing that. But they don't realize the power it has. And it actually sort of brings people with them on the journey as well. It's great when a hiring manager posts, I'm hiring, but it's not always going to work. It's that post, but that should be, I expect you to do that because you're a hiring manager. I want a little bit more than that to actually make a difference. Some of the things that we've put out over the years, it's hard to sort of measure that return of investment of what actually did lead to the hire. I think I read articles where I think you have to have 7 to 8 different touch points before you decide to make a decision to buy. So it's not me looking at 7 to 8, I'm hiring posts, it's 7 to 8 pieces of content about what it's like to work at your business.
You gave a great story yesterday, which I would kindly ask you to recycle, which is your partner.
Yeah, so I do one-to-ones with my team, and I decided one day to do it on a bike. So we've got some bikes near the office that you can use an app, you rent them for free. And we went along the canal and did the one-to-one. And I took a selfie and posted that on LinkedIn. And then from that, we made free hires of people that were sitting on the fence because they were like, if that's what you do with your manager, it looks that type of business that I want to go and work for. I then actually, there's an extra bit of the story I didn't mention yesterday. I then went to a conference and someone actually found me to say that they'd liked the post, their brother had seen it, their brother worked in the medical profession and they were doing it with their patients.
Brilliant. Fantastic. That's a classic example. That costs nothing, right? Pete Cook's talking about CEO posts on LinkedIn. I think actually the other question I was going to talk to you about actually, because you're right, Clive, people can be less confident to go out there. I remember the first time I was doing it, I hated it, frankly. And I told you yesterday about sometimes I'll have a moment of inspiration at 6 a.m. on the treadmill and I'll get off the treadmill, write something and then realize it's the most horribly written piece of content ever. And then I get all these screenshots on WhatsApp going, did you mean to say this? I'm like, oh my God, no, take it off. My point I want to make with that is it doesn't matter because you know what, people just do that and just keep scrolling. I mean, there's an interesting fact that on average, people scroll on Facebook the height of Big Ben every day. People just keep scrolling, just keep trying stuff. But also, the second point I want to make there is lean into your marketing team, right? Talent, and the reason why I talk about talent advertising a lot is because talent acquisition, being a sales and marketing thing, you have, definitely you guys, but most companies have a marketing team that have loads of assets. They have agencies with content they've been designing for months or years. It's already done. And it doesn't cost very much money to actually re-edit it, recut it, and start serving that out. And these marketing teams know what works when you're selling to individuals. So lean into those. I talk about talking to your marketing peers and colleagues a lot when it comes to employer branding, because one, they're part of your team, so it doesn't cost anything. Two, they've got lots of assets which are probably already paid for, so you get to use them again. And three, they really know what they're doing. I'm gone. Just someone want to say something? Sorry, cut across you. No,
I was just gonna say, with the personal brand thing, I think it's a key differentiator for any TA team, though. And it doesn't actually cost much to do. It's just your time and your confidence, and your confidence will build. There's a lady called Amelia Sordell who's really big on LinkedIn for personal brand. I would say to anyone, was follow Amelia, go to some of her LinkedIn lives. Some of the tips that she does, anybody can do, and it will just be amazing how you can turn things around. But you've got to think, we are really like marketing our businesses, and it's like sometimes I even when I try and hire people for my team, I do look them up on LinkedIn and I see what they've posted, and I'm like thinking, you've not posted anything for 3 years. It's like, there must be something exciting about where you work that you could put out rather than even a hiring post. So it's like, I think for us in TA, we can do more. And if we expect our managers to be quite active and be brand advocates, the first thing they're going to do is look at what TA do. And if TA don't do anything, it's like, why should I, as the hiring manager, then do something?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
Clive, just Pam, that was Amelia Sordell, Sordell. She's actually speaking at our London Live in-person event next week as well. So if you are in London and fancy seeing her in person, then feel free to pop along.
I would say if you've got budget, she does do workshops as well. So it depends how big your TA team is as well, and how much you want to invest in it.
Brilliant. We are nearly out of time, and I think we could probably talk for another hour, if not longer. But I appreciate that everyone is very busy at the moment as well. So Leo, I don't know if you had any closing thoughts or comments, or Sarah or Clive, if you guys had any sort of final thoughts that you might like to share with the attendees at all.
From my point of view, I just want to finish by thanking Sarah and Clive for coming on. Again, this content is nothing without the people that we convinced to come on, and we don't pay you for this, so definitely or coffee or lunch on me. But it enriches the Chapter 2 content, and it endorses what we try to do as a business, and it also gives back to the people that join and consume our content, tips and tricks and understandings of different ways of attracting talent to your business. So thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it.